Hello and welcome to the world-famous and award-winning Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber. If you would like to contact me, you sure can. All my contact links are in the description of the show. You could always call the listener hotline. It's been a little cold lately, so give it a call, 303-832-0217. Now, I don't have an official guest today, but I do have an interview for you. So I've been needing to go to Boulder for some time to get some video for a couple of Driving You Crazy stories. You see, I get all the video for my TV stories because once I asked a photographer, I had an old news director who said, why don't you have a photographer go out and get your video? And I said, okay, let's try this. And I asked a photographer to go get video of just a regular four-way stop, you know, and he got me a three-way stop. So there actually is one not too far from the TV station. And so there's that. So and it's actually better that I do it because I know what kind of video to shoot and what I'm looking for. And when I go out there, it helps me connect with the problem roadway or intersection or whatever it is. And I can understand these road issues better than just a photographer who I say, hey, will you go shoot this or get that video? So I get my own video for all my Driving You Crazy TV stories. Well, I've been putting off going to Boulder because it is a drive. I mean, it's a while to get up there and get back home. But the other day there was this event that I thought might make for a good little segment here on the show. And it was happening at the CU Boulder campus. So I said, all right, I'll get a 3-for-1 here. What was happening was the engineering students were tasked with creating a vehicle that was powered by a single battery-powered drill. They could create any style of vehicle. I saw a lot of like bicycles or tricycles and scooter-type things. And there were some limitations to what they could create, but they all had to be powered in some way by a drill, just a regular drill. You'd go get it any of the hardware stores that has a battery in it, right? So I found the person in charge of this project. It's Teaching Professor Jeffrey Knutsen, who works in the Mechanical Engineering College of Engineering and Applied Science at the University of Colorado in Boulder. So I talked to him for a few minutes. Now, I have to tell you this note first, because I used a mic that was plugged into my phone, I forgot to monitor one important setting, the audio gain, and it was just a touch overmodulated, especially when I'm talking, but it's not that bad. It's still airable. But anyway, here is my conversation with Professor Knutsen. Well, Jeff, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did this drill vehicle thing idea come about?
It came around about 12 years ago. One of our faculty members, Professor Daria Koda-Schwartz, came up with it about 10, 12 years ago, something like that. So it's my second time doing this. So last spring was my first time working with this.
And describe what we're looking at right here. What are we seeing?
So students have built vehicles that are powered by cordless drills. So they've experienced the design process. They've taken a lot of theory that they've learned in the classroom and made an actual physical vehicle out of it. So we got a variety of competitions. There's a maneuverability course where students go back and forth around cones and make figure eights and such. There's an endurance course where students will go for about a half an hour around a pond. They'll have pit stops every lap and they can switch out their batteries. There's also a hill climb, and the challenge is for students to carry as much weight as possible up a hill. So currently we're up about 1,200 pounds, apparently one group has successfully done. So they're really pushing their drills to the limit. Another course would be the drag race, where students will go head-to-head and go as quickly as they can. And so those are the events that we're dealing with here.
Well, why drills and not chainsaws or weed whackers or some other type of lawn equipment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, drills are cheap and they break, so students have to deal with the limitations of these the drills and try to design around it, try to accommodate the limited amount of torque that these drills will apply. So they really learn things like how to gear down a vehicle, how to make it roll slowly but with a lot of torque, and really try to accommodate the limitations of these drills.
I see that it's just one drill on these vehicles attached to some tricycles, some are bicycles, some are just other types of vehicles, but why just one and not multiple?
Well, again, just for the limitations of it. If we had two, we start to look into financial kind of limitations of these things. So we're looking about $85 a drill, and the teams are limited to a $200 budget. So probably wouldn't be able to implement it, but it's great because it actually limits the amount that they can do with these vehicles.
And it's smart to have it as batteries because it wouldn't be practical to have a 1,000-foot extension cord, plugged into a power strip that's on the vehicle, right?
Yeah, exactly. We've joked about that, and actually, if we could do it, they would, of course, dominate the competition if we could have one on plug-in power there.
Yeah, so they have to keep changing the batteries because it seems like these batteries would last, a half an hour under just regular drill stress, but not under this kind of stress.
Yeah, absolutely not under this stress. They might last a matter of just a few minutes here. We're really pushing to the limit of it. Teams have already smoked a couple of drills, so really burned them out and causing the chuck to lock up. So, really,
is there a preferred drive shaft, if you will, method, a drive train method that the kids are using to power the drill? Because I would think there's all kinds of different ways, whether you hook it up to a chain or a drive or just use it to push against a tire and make it roll that way.
Yeah, so the favorite design here is almost a classic bicycle type strategy where they'll have a small sprocket that's connected to the drill, and the chain will go through and drive a bigger sprocket. So students are learning a lot about gear ratios. If you're on a bike that can shift, you can decide, well, do I want to use a low gear, like it would help me go up a hill, but it would do it slowly, or do I want to use a high gear to have less acceleration, but it'll go more quickly. Some other teams are kind of branching out a little bit, and they've actually bought fabricated transmissions that are really, really low. So they can pull a lot of weight, but maybe a mile an hour or something like that, less than walking speed. So.
And the drills, as I familiar with working with them, they have their own settings, their own torque settings to drill at a higher torque than a lower torque. So maybe that's better for the weight competition.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a gear setting 1, which will be slow but with a lot of torque. So if you're going to haul up a big load slowly up a hill, you use setting 1. If you want to go real fast, I go setting 2. They'd accelerate more slowly, but you have a higher top end with those. So a lot of teams are also experimenting with shifting between the two. They'll kind of start out in first gear, and then once they're rolling, they'll shift up to gear number 2.
So 1,200 pounds is what you said was some of the highest weight that these guys are pulling. That's a lot. I mean, how are you getting the weight? Are you using people or pets or what?
It's up to student teams to come up with it. They're piling on, they're hog piling on as many people as they can. So it turns into a riot. So yeah, it's up to the teams to find the weight that they need.
So because I do transportation and traffic stuff on a daily basis, could this drill power be applicable to any real roadway use?
Oh, I would hope so. Students at least learn how to scale things up, and they understand about things like a torque curve on a motor, and hopefully they can bring some of their experience to a full-scale vehicle someday.
But they're not going to be driving these things around campus.
Oh, they already have.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A couple teams went back and forth across campus to go get them painted elsewhere, and yeah, it's a riot. So, yeah, they make it almost all the way back before they had to start pushing when the battery wore out.
And there has to be some kind of a prize at the end, right? So what do the kids get for winning their respective race?
Oh, yeah, we've got 4 trophy cups, and we've got medals for first, second, and third place for each of the events. So, yeah, and everlasting glory, as I like to say.
Yeah, there goes one that looks pretty good. He's going pretty fast.
Yeah, he's moving.
And he almost wiped out. Do we have any wipeouts here?
Oh, yeah, one disaster at the finish line, so no injuries, but yeah, it was a crowd pleaser anyway. A little bit of instability there.
Yeah, we do have a pretty good crowd.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, probably 100 people or more out today, so it's been great. We got a barbecue, and oh yeah, it's a great day. The weather was a little bit sketchy this morning, but the rain blew through, and yeah, up for a beautiful rest of the day.
All right, well, this is pretty amazing. I am having a great time watching all the kids and watching the camaraderie as they're all cheering each other on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great time. Probably the highlight of the year for me and for the students.
Jeff, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
See, pretty interesting, right? I thought it was interesting. And I don't think there's any practical uses of drill power for for getting around, but it was pretty funny to watch these kids driving these little vehicles around that section of campus. But I also recorded some video of the event. I shared that with the newsroom. I know we aired it the next morning. I don't know about the afternoon shows if they aired any of the video that I shot. So it was like a 4-for-1 trip, getting video for and an interview for that one story, and then 2 other stories I shot video for, and therefore upcoming Driving You Crazy stories that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. And anyway, so. Yeah, it was a good little trip to Boulder. Boulder's a great little town. It's nice. But yeah, it is a bit of a drive for me. Just from there to get home, it's a little over an hour for me. So that's one of the reasons I don't want to always drive up there. Anyway, speaking of stories, I wanted to get to some of the letters that I've been getting into the Driving You Crazy mailbag. But I want to start with what right now is the leader in the clubhouse for the strangest story of the year so far. There's a man in Belgium who has been acquitted of drunk driving because he has an auto brewery syndrome. I've never heard of something so rare. It is an extremely rare condition whereby the body produces alcohol in a natural way, I guess. In another unfortunate coincidence, this man also works at a brewery. So his body makes alcohol, and so does his employer. Yay! Well, anyway, a clinical biologist with a Belgian hospital says people with this auto brewery syndrome produce the same type of alcohol as found in any regular alcohol drink that you might have, but they generally feel less of the effects of the alcohol. And they say that people are not born with this syndrome, but can develop it when they have already other intestinal related conditions. So I guess that's where it's coming from, probably bacteria or whatever in your gut. Patients can present symptoms consistent with alcohol intoxication, like slurred speech or stumbling or loss of your functions, dizziness, belching, apparently. Well, 3 doctors independently examined this guy. They all confirm that he has this auto brewery syndrome. And the judge who presided over this case said that the defendant didn't experience or show any symptoms of intoxication. So they let him go. So there you go. If you think you're going to get a DUI, it's just because your body is making alcohol. How many people, honestly, I mean, would want that? I don't think I would. I know I would not. But I'm sure there are people that would beg to have that syndrome. All right, so there's that story. Now I wanted to go through some of the Driving You Crazy questions that have come into the mailbag. If you would like to write to me, you sure can. Just search Driving You Crazy Denver 7 in the old Google machine there. I have some links there in the description of the show that you can get a hold of me and send me a question, a Driving You Crazy question. And I'll take just about any Driving You Crazy question. Somebody was asking me the other day about zip codes and why a certain zip code had a certain city attached to it when there was another city that was closer. And some places this is like the city is nowhere near us. It's like 20 miles away, but still we're listed as this city for this zip code when we're not even close. So that was a little out of my range, I think. Well, I kind of anyway. But you go ahead and send me any question driving you crazy, and I'll try to help answer it for you. And of course, you could always call the listener hotline at 303-832-0217. And this just popped into my head. The station, we're moving to a new building, and some of the staff will be going there in a couple of weeks. I'm scheduled to go there near the end of June. I'll get a chance to hopefully look at the studio when we do some rehearsals in a few weeks or so. But I thought I was, but I just thought, am I going to get a new phone number, or are they even going to have desk phones in the building? I don't have a desk phone now. I actually use one of the phones that are in the weather center to connect to the voicemail system, and that's where so I have that phone number, the 832-0217 phone number that's assigned to me. But you can access it from any phone in the building the way their system is. It doesn't really ring to a specific phone in the building because I don't have a desk that has a phone attached to it. So I just access the voicemail system, and the voicemail sends me an email when I get a voicemail. So that way I can just put it on the show here. But when someone leaves a message, if you choose to leave a message, that's how I hear it. But I don't know how this is going to work in the new building. Are we going to have phones? Are we going to have a voicemail system? I imagine we have to have some kind of a phone coming into the main switchboard, right? So I think so. Is my number going to change? I don't know, because the 832 part is really for that area of Denver. And then, so I don't know. I just have no clue. I guess maybe I'll set up a Google Voice number or something like that if they don't have the a landline at the building. And that could be the new listener hotline, I guess. If the landlines go away. Anyway, I will, as always, conquer and prevail. There are always ways around it. Anyway, on to the mailbag. Robert from Denver writes, "What's driving you crazy? Why do some drivers toot their horn at the car in front of them immediately after the light turns green? Are they being polite or rude?" I had to ponder that question for all of about 2 seconds before coming up with this response, because I see this happen all the time. I said, "Hi, Robert. Thanks for writing. After putting on my Dr. Phil traffic psychology hat, I can only surmise that it is a mix of both polite and rude. Most times it happens when someone is tired of waiting for the driver ahead of them to get off their phone and go. I see it all the time. People pick up their phone at the red light, and they are still reading whatever they're reading when the light turns green. Since they're so enthralled with the content on their phone, they don't notice that the light is green, and drivers behind them who do see that the light is green get bugged and then honk the horn to wake them up." Now, I saw a lady just the other day who was reading her phone at the light and got honked at, but she didn't put the phone down. She was still reading whatever she was reading as we started driving, and she kept it up for a good minute or so. I kept going, and I was left shaking my head that she just didn't reckon to somebody. But that's all you can do sometimes. Just shake your head in disbelief in what people are doing while they're driving. It's a major responsibility. I think that people forget that. I was watching an old 1974 commercial of the new line of vehicles from AMC, American Motor Company. Remember them? The creator of the bubble window cars like the Gremlin and the Pacer. Now, when you look at those cars, you could see why you didn't feel safe going fast on the highway and in neighborhoods. Cars now are like race cars, and people drive them like a race car. The steering is tight, and they are quiet, and you're snug in your seat, and it feels like you can go faster than you should. Driving is a major responsibility. Anyway, back to Robert's question. The only way to really know why someone honks at someone else is to interview all the honking drivers, and that is an impossibility. So I can only guess at the reasons. If the honking was something other than phone-related, I would be surprised. And for some reason, it seems that the phone is a bigger draw to the lead driver at a traffic signal than to the other drivers in line at the light. Maybe the drivers back a few cars notice the light changed quicker than the lead driver, or they see other cars starting to move and they wonder why they aren't moving and honk to wake up the lead driver. That is all I can surmise at this point, Robert. Make sure to be safe out there and keep that phone down while you're driving. Really, just for an experiment. Look around at the traffic light, and you'll see how many people grab their phone and start checking their whatever apps, Facebook, whatever it is, while they wait at the traffic signal. I mean, you're there for maybe 45 seconds, and I guess that's enough time to go through some emails or whatever. I mean, can we not just sit there for 30 or 45 seconds and just look aimlessly into space and ponder life's great mysteries like, is Bingo the name of the farmer or the dog? You can pause this now and ponder that, as I know you are. Think about it. There was a farmer who had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. Was Bingo the name of the farmer, or was Bingo the name of the dog? And how many Lowe's could Rob Lowe rob if Rob Lowe would rob Lowe's? Those are the kind of things you could ponder if you were just sitting at a traffic signal at a red light for 30 or 45 seconds without picking up your phone. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Ken from Lakewood writes to me saying, "What's driving you crazy? Phone numbers on road construction signs. Feels useless to me. I have never called one of these phone numbers. I am not a speak on the telephone person. Difficult to remember 7 or 10 digits of a telephone number while driving. I shouldn't talk on the telephone while driving, and it's even more dangerous in construction zones." Okay, Ken, I was going to leave this answer on your voicemail, but I see you aren't taking calls right now, or ever, so it seems. So I'm hoping that you're better at navigating a podcast. Look, the construction companies are required to put their contact information, like their phone number, at a construction site. That way, if there's a problem, let's say a sign is in the road, right? It gets blown over. Or their backhoe is somehow out of whack, or someone messed up with, with their message board to say something like the zombies are coming. If anything like that happens, then you have someone to address the problem. Many times, the construction company will set up a specific number for a specific project, or they will put up their general number. It might have updated information. That phone number might have updated information about lane closures, about the project in general, about the progress that's going on, and a voicemail box to maybe leave an important message or to get more information about the project. I think what people don't understand is that most road work is done by private companies that bid on these work projects put out by a state or county or city. When a company puts their number and name on these signs, you'll know that as the traveling public, that it's not your state or your city or your county doing the actual work. They're just paying for some private company to do that actual work. The number can also help people get in touch with, let's say, the company if they want to contact them for a job they might have. Let's say I had a construction job, or I was another county and I thought, hey, this is going pretty well. Maybe I want to contact and know what that company is, and there is their phone number. It's basically an advertising sign in some ways as well. And just because you aren't a phone calling kind of driver, Ken, there are others who are. I know people. My wife has a memory like a, I won't say like what, but she has a really good memory, and she could remember a number like that easily. And if you're going too fast to see the number, usually those phone numbers are posted on the project website or through the state DOT. And since they usually have the name of the contractor at each of these projects, if you can remember that, then maybe you can contact them and then get that info if you so desire. Like I said, state DOT contracts out most of their major projects to general construction contractors, so that's why there are different phone numbers at these various projects. It is true that talking on the phone is a distraction, especially in a construction zone, even if you are using the Bluetooth or your hands-free. But still, I think it's worth it to have the phone number there. Maybe you can just take a picture or use your dash cam video to get the number and then call from the comfort of your kitchen table, Ken. I appreciate having a contact number for these sites, but I'll put your name down in the not a fan column. Yes, these are some of the real letters that I get to respond to. Okay. And then I have this one from Janice in Denver, who wrote to me saying, "What's driving you crazy? What do you do when you're riding in the express lane going the speed limit or a bit over and an irate person is tailgating you? You can't move over and it gets actually scary." Well, that situation, Janice, is very unnerving. What I've told my wife and my 15-year-old daughter, who is learning to drive, that you should just continue going the speed limit or around it and try as best as you can to put that aggressive driver out of your mind. Don't let them force you to make an unsafe move. If they want to pass, they will. I spoke to Tim Hoover. He's CDOT's Deputy Director of Communications for Policy and Programs. I often talk to him about express lanes statewide, and he told me to be assured that you are not doing anything wrong. The person behind you is doing something wrong. He says the express lane is meant for free flow conditions. It's not an Autobahn. Express means nonstop, not pedal to the metal. Really, people need to stop driving recklessly, he said. People driving the speed limit is not the problem we have. Our problem as a state is that we have people driving way, 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 way too fast, and that leads to accidents and increases the severity of the accidents. Yes, he did say way 4 times. Anyway, back to the answer. One additional problem with this situation is that if you wanted to move over out of the express lane and let the aggressive driver pass, you will be making an illegal lane change over the double white lines and could face the $75 ticket for doing it. Something else I told my wife is that if she starts to feel threatened, she could call the Colorado State Patrol at star CSP. It's star, you hit the star button, and then 277, hit send. And that puts you in touch with the State Patrol dispatcher, and you can tell them where you are, what's happening. If you could safely describe the vehicle, the plate number, the driver description, all of that, that would help the state troopers if they dispatch somebody to get to that situation. And I asked the State Patrol if that was good advice. I asked one of the troopers in the Public Information Office, and he told me with a vehicle tailgating you, that is aggressive driving on the other vehicle's part. Let me stop for a second. That's what he says. I hate it when public officials, when we on the new, always try to correct us in the morning when you say the other vehicle, the vehicle didn't do anything. Unless it's a Tesla in its self-driving mode, vehicles don't do anything. They are operated by a person. So when you say an SUV crashed into a house, a driver in an SUV crashed into the house. Cars that, or there was a police chase the other day. And they say, well, the vehicle eluded the police. No, the driver of the vehicle eluded the police, right? It just drives me. That's one of my irks. That drives me crazy, especially when people in law enforcement or whatever talk about the vehicle doing something that the vehicle can't do. All right, anyway, back to what the trooper was telling me. He says you can report it to Star CSP and let them know about what's going on, but in a situation like this, the speed limit is still the speed to go. Now, Skylar McKinley, the Regional Director of Public Affairs for AAA Colorado, when I was talking to him in one of our recent episodes, it was a great episode. Go back a couple and you'll see and you'll get it. I've had a lot of comments, positive comments on that episode with Skylar, but I forgot to ask him this on the show, so I asked him separately, and he shared some advice saying, from a AAA perspective, safety always comes first when dealing with an aggressive or aggravated driver. The most important thing you can do is to remain calm, courteous, and exit the encounter as quickly and safely as you can. To that end, in this situation, you want to avoid forcing the other driver to slam on their brakes. But you shouldn't feel obligated to match their unsafe speed. Maintain speed as close to the limit as the conditions allow while making a mental note of the driver's license plate number, a description of the vehicle, your approximate location, and the direction of travel. Now, I was reading on a Northeast AAA webpage, and they shared this general advice when dealing with a tailgater, saying tailgating reduces the space between cars to an unsafe distance. So if you suddenly hit the brakes, let's say you're doing a brake check, people know what that is, that somebody's tailgating you, you hit the brakes a couple of times to get them to back off. The tailgater may not have enough time to react and slow down before hitting your car. Or the driver that is behind you might overreact and then, especially at those high speeds, cause a crash in that way as well. Be extra cautious and don't slam on the brakes. Be spiteful. Now, when I was talking to Skylar, he added that even though it is technically illegal to cross the double white lines to get out of the express lane when you're not in the exit area, if you feel that you're in danger, do what you need to do. He says per CDOT, the Department of Transportation here in Colorado, the express lane penalty program exists primarily because violators who ignore these rules present hazards to themselves and other roadway users. Extricating yourself from a dangerous situation is consistent with CDOT's safety enforcement goals, and while exiting the lane may technically constitute a violation, CDOT enforcement is aimed at those individuals who weave in and out of the express lanes. Now, in the unlikely event you were ticketed for the one-time lane departure related to this unsafe situation, you would have an excellent ground to challenge the ticket on the basis of the aggressive motorist behavior and your overriding interest to protect yourself and other road users. I agreed with that and thought that was a good way to get out of the situation and then later deal with, if they did send you a ticket, at least get out of the situation, let it pass, and then deal with it later. I wrapped up the answer by saying ultimately how you handle the situation is entirely up to you, but we can only hope that the tailgater passes you across the double white lines and they are the one to pick up that weaving ticket. I don't like people who tailgate me. I know aggressive tailgating is very unsettling. especially when you are the target of somebody right up against your tailbone. And I think most men would brake check the tailgater. I think that's probably how they react to it. But like I said earlier in the answer, and like Skylar said, it's not safe, and that can lead to a crash. And if it doesn't lead to a crash, it could lead to that tailgater being even more aggressive and then making even more aggressive type driving moves towards you, which could even be more dangerous. I was thinking I would really love to see the results of an experiment. Well, let's say we had a lane where you could drive, where you could pay to drive in, and it had no speed limit, almost like an Autobahn lane, where you could go as fast as you want. If you crash, sorry, that's on you. And it would just maybe it's off the roadway in a separate, I don't know, whatever. But there's just or it's right there, a lane that you can drive for a price, $50. And then now you can go as fast as you want, and that's your problem if you crash. I would say you would probably have to have some conditions, like you have to drive alone, so you don't hurt any innocent person in the car with you. Of course, I don't think this will ever happen, and we'll never have an Autobahn here. There are some roads like in West Texas, and I know up in Montana at one time they had whatever speed was reasonable and prudent, and there were people driving at 100 or higher. When that was in place. And there's parts of Utah and Nevada that I've driven in that are so wide open that you could easily go 100 miles an hour and you wouldn't be bothering anybody, really anybody out there. But I think that's about as close as we would see to having an Autobahn here in the United States. Oh, there was one other story that I saw that I wanted to bring to you. It's actually, it was one of my favorite stories ever. Remember when SpaceX was testing their Falcon Heavy rocket? And during one of those tests, one of the last tests that they did, it was in early 2018, Elon Musk, he strapped his personal Tesla Roadster to one of the rockets. And he put a mannequin named Starman in the driver's seat, put a helmet on him. I think he put him in a leather jacket or something, and they sent him out into space. And I, for one, was wondering how Starman is doing. Well, it seems that he's making a comeback. Experts have predicted that the car would likely crash into Venus or into the sun as it was moving farther away from the Earth. But it seems that the Roadster has made a total circle U-turn, basically, and is now believed to be coming back straight to Earth. The Roadster and his passenger are being tracked by this dedicated website. It's named Where is Roadster? You can just type in Where is Roadster, and you can get the website. I'll put the link in the description of the show. Now, as I'm looking at the website right now, it says the car is, about 56 million miles away from Earth. So it'll take a little bit of time to get here. The site says that Starman has completed just over 4 orbits around the sun. Apparently, he's in an orbit that's going around the sun, as is Earth. And the vehicle has traveled far enough to drive all of the world's roads 78 times. So how is the car doing? Well, apparently it's exceeded its 36,000-mile warranty 86,000 times while now driving around in the sun. Now, as of mid-April, the Roadster is moving towards Earth at a speed of around 2,000 miles an hour. And it's expected to make its next closest approach in 2047. At that time, it will be at a distance of just 3 million miles. That's about 13 times the distance between the Earth and Moon. It will also make a couple of passes within a million miles of Earth in 2050. So it's like the eclipse. It comes around every 3 years. The Roadster it's in an irregular orbit around the sun, and it takes, I guess, they say on the site here, 557 days to complete. And according to NASA, the orbit will be stable for several million years, but solar and cosmic radiation and micrometeoroid impacts will destroy the vehicle over time. Researchers have calculated the odds of this car impacting the Earth at 6%. And that's within a million years. So I don't think we're going to see it actually crash back into Earth. They give it a 10% chance after 3 million years, and the odds of it crashing into Venus or the sun each stand at about 12%. So most likely it's just going to keep floating out there until the cosmic dust and meteoroid impacts take it out. But the whole thing, the percentage, I could say it this way. The percentage that this car and Starman has captured my heart is 100%. Yay! Anyway, if you have a question or comment or concern, you, of course, can send it to me, and you can be a part of the Driving You Crazy inbox. It's always available at denver7.com. The left side menu gets you to Denver 7 traffic. You can click away there on the Driving You Crazy page. You can always call that listener hotline. Still works for now. 303-832-0217. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Luber, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.